themselves in the library from A to Z. That's how many pages it would take to print out the amount of information that Google has on the average American. So if that's the amount of information they can glean simply from our online activities, imagine what would happen if they could glean that kind of information from your offline activities when you really think it's private, because it was a real coup for them to create Gmail and give themselves inside access to everybody's email, and still 10 years later, 12 years later, nobody's figured out that they're doing it. So talk about brilliant. They want to do the same thing in your home, the same way that they're now reading all of your email, which is the sole reason why they offer you that service. They want to be able to listen to all your conversations at the dinner table. They want to be able to know what time you went to bed. They want to be able to know what products you took off the shelf in your kitchen or in your bathroom, everything. So this notion of smartness is really the tentacles of this global brain, which is really Google and Apple and these big technology companies combined with government. It's a global brain that's being created, and it wants to reach its tentacles, extend its reach, its surveillance reach. Imagine tentacles, and instead of suckers, it has little cameras on the end of all, down there dangling around. And it wants to reach that into the most private areas of your life, into your car, into your house, your bedroom, your shower, your kitchen, and ultimately it wants to reach those tentacles literally inside of you. So this global thing that we are building is, I believe, going to be the biggest enemy that humanity has ever faced, because once we add artificial intelligence into this thing is going to go way beyond our control, and it's going to have literally total control over everyone and over even their physiological function to where you can't escape it.
Yeah, I have said for some time that the technocrats among us have learned how to collect data in ways that we never dreamed, whether it be emails or phone calls or commercially available information scraped off of social media, whatever. They've gotten very good at collecting stuff and getting it stored onto these massive disk arrays that they've created now, like in the Utah data center that the NSA operates. But the analysis technology has lagged behind by at least, probably, this is my opinion, probably 3 to 5 years. In other words, they don't yet have the ability to analyze this incredible amount of data on a real-time basis yet, but they're working at breakneck speed to where one day, and soon, the analysis technology is going to catch up with the storage technology. And then we're going to begin to see things that we never dreamed possible.
That's right.
In terms of how they will determine what our future behavior will be. And we've even seen some of this. I think Florida was the first one to implement a pre-crime, if you will, predictive policing. It's just like, based on a psychographic profile of people, who's most likely to commit a crime. Well, this is what the Tom Cruise movie was about. Minority Report, I think, was 2002. Pretty scary movie. But this is actually where we're headed with this. Once they get the analysis programs in place, not only the computing power, but also the artificial intelligence to tie it together, we'll see things happen in orders of magnitude almost every year after that, I think.
I agree completely. And even with what they have right now, it's pretty impressive, because if we go back to our example of the Encyclopedia Britannica, when I was a kid, we actually had a Funkin' Wagnalls encyclopedia, and I never read every single entry from A to Z. There's no way that I would have been able to do that. But when I wanted to know about the Panama Canal, I could just take the P volume off the shelf and open to that page, and there were 5 pages of information and pictures. And that's really all I needed. So with the storage capacity, which is really almost becoming unlimited these days to store this kind of information about people, it's not the case currently that all of it is being analyzed in real time as it's collected. But what is the case is that once someone becomes a person of interest, whether it's because they're being marketed to, or perhaps because they've expressed some views about the government or perhaps a political party or perhaps a political viewpoint, kind of like the Tea Party being discriminated against by the IRS, once they've come on the radar screen, at that point they become the Panama Canal. Then you can simply open up all of the archives of massive amounts of bulging information and drill down to that particular individual or group's information. And that's when this information becomes so incredibly dangerous, because it's all there for the taking. So getting back to the TV example and this idea of an almost sentient entity being built that wants to extend its tentacles into our lives, the TV is one way in which it's actually doing that. The first TV that we heard about doing this was the Sanyo television, and I actually do a daily radio program at kmashow.com, and I actually had the reporter who first reported on that story way back when on my show right away to talk about his discovery. And what he discovered is that he had actually purchased a brand new Sanyo smart TV without really knowing it was smart. He didn't really pay attention to that. And he installs this big screen TV on his wall, and it doesn't come with a manual nowadays. It comes with, like some quick installation instructions, but the manual itself is actually located in the computer on the TV. So in order to read the terms and conditions, you know how you agree and you sign on and you do all these things, he had to flip through over 45 pages of information on the screen of the TV. And so he's clicking next and next and next. And most people, I would imagine, the vast majority, if not everybody, would say, oh, forget it, I'm not going to read all this dumb stuff on my TV. But because he was a reporter, he actually went through every screen and he read every screen. And when he got to a page in the 40s, he saw the fine print that said, if you are using this television and having private conversations in the television, please be aware that those televisions that those conversations will be transmitted through the television to third parties. And so he's reading this thing going, what? What are you talking about? And he comes to understand that the television actually has a two-way viewing microphone sensor in it. So not only are you watching the TV, but the TV is actually watching you. And not only are you listening to the speakers, but it actually has a microphone that's listening to you. And the reason Sanyo put this capacity in the television was to make the television, quote, smart. So you could say to the television, you could actually talk to it and say, TV, record, Game of Thrones at 9 p.m. on Tuesday. And the TV would say, yes, sir, master, sir, I will do that. So that was the idea, is that the TV would be listening to you, so you wouldn't have to go through all the bother of trying to figure out how to get it, programmed. We all know those are hard to do. And the idea is that the TV would listen. Unfortunately, what it also meant is that the TV was listening to everything else you said on the off chance that you might be issuing it a direct command. So this TV was listening to people. And what I found so fascinating about this is, here I have this guy on my show, and he broke the story, and it's become now, they've got a law in California, which is on the governor's desk to be signed, to actually make these televisions have to report to you and have to have this capability be turned off, and you have to say it actually on the packaging so you don't accidentally bring this thing home. So it's become a big deal, but here's the telling part. At the end of my interview with him, and he was on my program for an hour, I said, well, thanks for letting us all know about this. This is really terrible. And what did they say when you returned the TV? And you know what he said to me? I never returned the TV. And I thought, what? You kept the TV? He said, yeah, I just, flipped a couple of settings to turn it off. And this is really important, because I'm all about solutions these days, not just telling you about the problem. His response was a solution in that he told us all about it, but it really wasn't the ultimate solution, which is to make a change in your purchasing behavior, to make a change in the marketplace, because Sanyo doesn't care if 10,000 or 1,000,000 stories are published on the internet saying they're really bad. As long as those stories say their name and spell it right and people buy the TV, they laugh all the way to the bank. Sanyo is only interested in whether or not you are spending money for their product. And so for this guy to write all of these stories and have all this report floating around, but then allow them to keep his $1,000, doesn't send a message to Sanyo of, hey, you better knock this activity off. The only way you're going to send a message to these corporations to stop is either by doing what California is doing and passing a law against it, or I think more effectively, because I'm a libertarian, saying, I'm not going to participate. I don't want this TV, and I would have loved to have seen at that point 1,000 people buy that TV and 3 days later go and return it and let them figure out how to deal with all the cardboard boxes and plastic that's missing and used TVs that they now have to take back. And that would send a message to them, ooh, it costs us money to be doing these evil things, so we better knock it off.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Some of this technology was patently illegal in the United States a few years ago. And in many cases, when the government has been caught spying, for instance, in areas that they shouldn't be spying in, they've been slapped down by either a court, perhaps, or by Congress itself. And what's happened, though, looking back, we see these little points of conflict, but we look back over the last 10 years, and we find that basically they just ignored all of the little slaps along the way and went ahead and did what they wanted to do anyway, even if it was illegal. And in some cases where they couldn't get away with it locally, they exported the technology to places like China, where nothing is illegal in China. And they developed the technology in China using, their own citizens. And then when the technology is proven out, we find it creeping back into the United States.
Right.
This is absolutely amazing. I was interested in a story back in late October where China announced that it's building a huge citizens database to track dissenters.
Yes.
They don't hold anything back. They just say, well, this is to track dissenters. And so they're collecting all the information like they are here. And they're talking about using all this information to assign a score, kind of like a credit score, and to us, to assign a score to every citizen in society.
Score, yeah.
Where you'll be analyzed, and then you'll get this score as to whether you're a team player or not. And that will be linked to your national identity card. So,
right.
If you walk up to a checkpoint and you find out, well, your score is only 350, where, a good little citizen comrade, his score ought to be up around 800. Well, okay, you're a troublemaker, right? Oh boy, step over here, sir. You're going to go through another line, and you won't like this one. This use of technology that we're talking about today, I am absolutely convinced in my mind, looking back, that there was a time where this would have completely freaked out, if not creeped out, everybody in society, including Congress, including the judges, including everybody. But it's just like the frog has been put in the water, and incrementally the water's been increased in temperature. And now all of a sudden we can't get loose from it. It's everywhere, pervasive. We can't get loose from it. It seems to me to just be insanity. But
yeah, so I think it's important that we recognize that these technologies going into our homes are actually recent. The encroachment onto our internet privacy and the encroachment in our public spaces has pretty much crept up on us over the last 20, 30 years. But we are living in a window in time when we actually have the ability to point out and stop the encroachment into our homes. And what's really interesting, you talked about 1984 and Winston and Big Brother, watching him through the telescreen, which is very much like these TVs we're talking about. But he could escape, and under Google, there's not a plan for that. What's interesting to me, I actually do this work because I have a floor-to-ceiling bookshelf 4 feet wide of 20th century history. And in the 20th century, people's own governments were 6 times more deadly than all of the century's wars combined. And if you stop and think about that statistic for a moment, it's shocking, it's horrifying, it's mortifying. And we're talking about tens of millions of people killed under Mao Zedong, under Stalin, under Hitler, under Pol Pot in Cambodia. we have a very bad history as human beings of